Good morning once again. We heard from the president that there are no direct plans for him to visit Saudi Arabia just yet, but the White House has all but confirmed that he is going to visit Saudi Arabia as part of a longer trip that will include Europe and Israel later this month. He was asked if he would consent to meeting directly with the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, who, of course, was implicated by U.S. intelligence services in the killing of the Washington Post journalist Khashoggi. And the president said we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it is widely expected that he will consent to meet with the Saudi Crown Prince, who effectively runs the country and is the future of that country's leadership. But when they're asked if he stands by his statement from the campaign period that Saudi Arabia is a pariah state, which is a statement he made largely in response to the Khashoggi killing, the president said that his position on human rights will remain the same, but as president, it's his duty to try to achieve peace in the Middle East. He then made reference to what he called the risk of more senseless wars between Israel and Arab nations. Aside from some fairly limited conflicts with the Palestinian factions, Israel hasn't really run a risk of a major war with an Arab state in quite some time. In fact, the whole geopolitical assessment of that region is now that Israel is more aligned than ever with Arab states, a number of which have, in fact, under the Abraham Accords from the Trump administration, established diplomatic relations with Israel because Israel and the Arab states tend to now regard Iran as the major threat in the region. And the president, of course, earlier in his remarks about the economy, called on Congress to enact more parts of his economic agenda so that we can deal with inflation from what he called a position of strength. He said there's no denying that this is a stretch of higher prices, but that's what he called it, a stretch of higher prices. He got political at one point, again calling out the Republican senator from Florida, Rick Scott, for a plan that he has released under his own personal auspices, calling for various economic agenda items if the Republicans should reclaim both houses of Congress, as many think they might do in the midterm elections. So from the president, claiming credit for the solid but somewhat more modest jobs gains that we saw in the month of May, calling on Congress to do more to enact his legislation, and effectively standing by his comments that Saudi Arabia, which he apparently plans to visit later this month, is a pariah state. Sean.
All right, Chief White House Correspondent James Rosen joining us live from Washington with the details on that and analysis. James, thank you. Joining us now is retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, also author of this new book. It's called Tragic Consequences: The Price America is Paying for Rejecting God and How to Reclaim Our Culture for Christ, Oliver North. Took a question about gun laws at the end and getting legislation passed and what he believes would help protect children, families, and communities, again, according to the President of the United States. And I'll show you this, your reaction, if I can get to his speech last night, just some of the changes the Commander-in-Chief wants to see in regards to gun legislation. He wants to ban assault weapons. He says if you can't do that, at least change the age from 18 to 21, ban high-capacity magazines, strengthen background checks, enact safe storage laws and red flag laws, and repeal gun manufacturers' immunity from liability. Now, as the former NRA president, do you support one of these measures, all of these measures, any of them, as the Speaker of the House says they will vote next week on a gun package?
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure some of that is going to pass, Sean, but the bottom line of it is they're going about the wrong way. There's a couple of things that ought to change. One, what you need to do is protect the children in the schools. There's absolutely nothing he said last night that deals with any of that. There's not a single person who's been killed by one of these crazies out there and these mass murders that have happened that have been stopped by any of those measures he announced last night. I mean, the bottom line of it is they're probably going to increase the age of people going to be, able to buy a firearm. By the way, there are no assault weapons out there in the hands of those that are committing the crimes. First, criminals don't follow the law to begin with. Number two, an assault weapon is a military weapon. It has a sear selector that allows you to go safe, semi-automatic, or full automatic. None of those crimes that he's been referring to over the course of the last several months, none of those crimes were committed by an assault weapon. You have to have a license for an assault weapon. And the criminals aren't going to obey the laws anyway. So I suggest two things. Number one, it is time to get back to what we're talking about in this book. The reality of it is this country was founded by people who understood God's laws as they're in the Holy Bible. Okay? We need to stop congressmen out there saying, stop your effing praying. And the full word was out there in that kind of exchange. I think this country desperately needs to pray. I think that we need to pray for our country. I urge that on everybody I talk to. This book is all about that. Those who are out there criticizing the conservative movement need to understand something. Not one thing that the president announced last night would stop any of these crimes. Number two, praying for our country is a good thing to do. And number three, what we ought to be doing is protecting the school children. Where? In schools. Okay. Number two, what you need to do is assess the threat. How many people are out there doing bad things and getting ready to commit a crime? Number three, intercept them before they get to their objective, the school. And number four, better training and a further commitment in the law enforcement community to putting people in school resources who are armed and make sure that they've got the armor that they're going to need for a SWAT team. The kinds of things that happen down in Texas are shameful, quite frankly. I had breakfast with a sheriff here in Virginia today, and he acknowledges the same thing. Hard to be critical of a guy getting shot at, but the bottom line of it is they need better training, and we need veterans playing the role of school resource officers because they've got great situational awareness. Not one mention of that by the president last night. It's shameful.
I just want to be factually correct. The gunman in Uvalde did, in fact, use an AR-15 style rifle.
No, but that's not an assault weapon. An assault weapon goes full auto. He couldn't buy one of those. You need a federal firearms license in order to operate or use or buy or exchange a full assault weapon.
Fully automatic,
it
correct.
looks like an assault weapon.
Correct.
Right? It's not.
I want to.
A lot of our colleagues are making the same mistake.
Really quickly, because I'm running out of time with you. I wanted to play what you were talking about, the speech from President Biden last night. Here's a clip of that moment. Here's that.
More kids than on-duty cops killed by guns. More kids than soldiers killed by guns. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough? Again,
thoughts on that speech last night?
Well, if you can explain to me, Sean, what he was really trying to say, I might be able to comment on it. But unfortunately, he's been wrong about so many things. You got to wonder, who is it that's writing his talking points before he gets up and makes a speech like he did last night? The bottom line of it is this country desperately needs prayer. And number two, we need to protect the kids in the schools. Not a thing was mentioned about any of that. That's the kind of thing you could do with simply money allocated to putting school resource officers, a certain number of them, based on the program that I encouraged when I was the president of the NRA.
Yep, and you have your new book out. There's a lot in there, and it tells. And I know that you talk about getting God back into society as well, prayer as well. Colonel, always a good. If I had a whole hour with you, I know you're fascinating to talk to. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, thank you so much, Colonel. Good to see you. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, Sean. You too.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.